Hi, Gemini. Welcome to a tarot card reading, a random tarot card reading that we're doing using a Greek mythology tarot deck. Now, I wanted to do a random reading because I have already done your March and April full month, week by week readings on my TikTok. So I thought, why not just let the cards kind of lay things out and see what's happening with the main energy of your week? Like, what's going on right now? Your cards are amazing. Honestly, holy, you have Kairos, which is fortune and opportunity, chance and luck on your side. What a great energy to get. Along with Calliope, which is inspiration and wisdom. It's almost like there's going to be a situation, perhaps one that you felt with Ocnus, that you were previously unable to go forward to obtain, an opportunity that was delayed for you. With the story of Ocnus, it almost feels like, you see, what happens in Greek mythology with Ocnus is he's in the underworld and he's constantly trying to create this rope, the way that people would spin a rope, right, in history and in the Middle Age as well. Taking it back to antiquity, in the ancient world, here he was spinning his rope, but on the other side of it was a donkey who was constantly eating his rope. He never got anywhere, kept continuously trying the same situation over and over again. And this is why I think it's useful in your reading, because there may be something that you have consistently tried repetitively to obtain and deal with. Maybe it's your health, maybe it's your finances. You just keep doing it over and over again. And then here comes wisdom and fortune and opportunity to resolve that situation so that you don't have to sit in a position of delay or tardiness, so that the situation isn't like you sabotaging it over and over again. Finally, you get an opportunity. Fortune is on your side. Favor is here, but it does require you to act. You see, wisdom and inspiration will likely happen, and it will require you to grab at it very quickly. There's an expression here with the idea of fortune, that fortune favors the bold. Fortune comes in very sudden instances. And in fact, wisdom oftentimes comes in very sudden instances as well. They say that wisdom is connected to your intuition. And what is it, my dears, that blocks a person's intuition? Living in the future or living in the past. These formats of anxiety where we're constantly thinking about the past, constantly allowing ourselves to think that these mistakes that we've experienced in the past define us, or living in the future, having anxiety about the where's, the what ifs, the all of the what's, they remove us from living in the present moment, in the now. And why? Phobos and Deimos. Because of the fear of failure. That is essentially what happens at the heart of most self-sabotage. Most of the times that we sabotage the situation, or we end up in a dynamic like Ocnus, where we're doing the same thing over and over again, it's usually occurring because we have a deep-rooted fear of failure, and the fears that we have keep us in panic, rumination, anxiety, and resistance. So we don't have that ability to go forward. We stay in a situation of unreadiness. These cards are just fantastic. They're really pulling together and telling a particular story here. Now, at the heart of your reading, I think it is interesting that Poseidon is here in the reversal position. And Poseidon's energy can have a couple differences, where at one aspect it can talk about storms. He is connected, of course, to the god of water. And other times he's connected to things like travel, because, of course, Poseidon was that god that people prayed for the favors of when they traveled over the oceans, right? So for a moment here, let me just pull out an additional card. I want to see why it is that Poseidon, get a little bit more clarification as to why Poseidon is here. Is it because, especially in the reversal, is there an inability to move, to go forward? Are you still dealing with this stormy energy? Perhaps because he is about assertion, but he's in the reversal. Perhaps there is an inability to bring yourself into a position of being assertive. Let's see. Iapetus. Interesting. oftentimes connected in a very unique way to concepts like Yahweh or Jehovah, connected to lineage and legacy. It's an issue within the family. Fascinating. I'm just thinking here for a second because, of course, the Olympians are all about family. You know, the gods of Olympus, Poseidon, Zeus, lesser known Iapetus. It's unique because it makes me feel like your power is drained because Poseidon is in the reversal. There's this lack of power that you feel, and it's been connected to family difficulties. I also think it's interesting. Iapetus was in the upright position when we got it here. I also think it's interesting that Iapetus is connected to foundationally building yourself up, but also connected to foundations in the family and mortality. So for some of you, there could have been difficulties in the family that physically felt weaker. Either a person in your family was weaker, or there could have been a passing. Phobos and Deimos are very much underworld energies. And again, Iapetus is connected to people's mortality. It's the ability to live in general. Some of this makes me think that if this is not a family-related circumstance, it could be like a health circumstance within yourself that's got you feeling drained. But again, this is the now. The future presents this opportunity of fortune, chance, luck, very sudden change for you all of a sudden. Let's look more into that also. Ooh, let's look more into the fortune. What do we have? Persephone, your transformation. You have great growth coming from this fortunate situation. This wisdom and inspiration that comes for you. You know, I also want to mention Calliope is connected to music. That's why we have the lyre here. So some of you guys might find an opportunity comes up in a creative sense. Something creative could be connected to music or the arts. Something that you do that lifts yourself up. And I had a feeling Zeus was going to come out of here if we had Poseidon. Action and assertiveness. You are going to become assertive. I knew it. So I was wondering about that earlier. I'm like, is this about travel? Why is it that Poseidon's not here? It's because you're having difficulty asserting yourself in what it is you want to do. And I think there's a likelihood that you don't assert yourself forward to what you want because you have a fear of failure. You don't think that you can get your goals. You think you're going to fail something, so you don't go further on into it. You're wrong about that. I'm going to say it like flat. If there's something that you're thinking, you know, with awkness especially, that it just seems useless. You just keep doing something over and over again. You're never going to obtain it, or there's too much of a delay. You're not ready for it. I think you're more ready for it than you realize, but you're waiting for a particular opportunity to come forward so that you can suddenly find yourself in that moment of assertiveness where you say, okay, now. Okay, I'm ready. It's like you're waiting for someone to pull the gun in a metaphorical way. Let's just say it like that. You're waiting for the perfect time, and the perfect time is coming for you. Again, you have great growth and great fortune and great opportunity coming for you in the future. Also, Hades is here. I know that this is, you know, people are like, oh my gosh, not Hades, not the underworld. Please put that to a side. Hades is transactional wealth. He is the god of wealth, big time. A lot of people miss that. He's about administration and increases in wealth through structure. So I think that it's valuable to take a circumstance to take an understanding from some of the more positive qualities of Hades and apply them to this reading here, especially because we don't have him in the reversal. So, I mean, I know that we talked about Kairos and circumstances connected to fortune and luck, but what's a synonym for fortune? It's money. It's an increase in wealth. So you have two cards here about the increase of wealth that you're going to be getting at some point. But it's through assertiveness, and you have to put the fear of failure behind you. If there's a certain job, go for it, right? If you have a certain place you want to move to, go for it. If there's a course you want to take, if it's been dwindling in your mind, especially if you're afraid of failing at it, keep pushing forward through it. You're not going to fail it, guys. Okay. I think I'm going to leave you guys off with that. I'm going to head over to do the sign of Cancer now. Take any moment of, like, looking at this card here with Phobos and Deimos. Take any moment that you can of rumination, anxiety, and resistance, and perhaps learn about something that's called the law of non-resistance. Recognize when resistance occurs and when you're creating your own form of resistance and you don't need it to. And if you don't know what the law of resistance is, Google that. Go on YouTube and learn about it. I'm sorry I'm stuttering at this point because there's so many different things that you could use with the path of non-resistance, and I'm having difficulties expressing for a moment where you could start because there's so many avenues that are great with the path of non-resistance. As an example, one thing that stutteringly popped into my head was how Bruce Lee uses the path of non-resistance, right? Take the easiest path, right? Be water, my friend. Another thing immediately popped into my head where I was like, okay, maybe I should talk about Florence Scovel Shinn, who wrote books on how to be successful with money, and she utilizes the law of non-resistance. So you see what I mean? I'm stuttering through it. That's because there was like 17 authors that just popped into my head where I wish that I could communicate all of the different authors and all of these different paths where non-resistance is useful. But really me expressing it all feels a little, not weightless, but a little too soon if you don't even know what the path or the law of non-resistance is. That's why I say take some time to go and Google it or go onto YouTube to better understand where you are creating resistance in your life and where examples of no resistance is. Because if you find areas of your life where there are no resistance, that's the way that you go to your money. You're like, oh, this thing works here. Bam, you go for it. You're like, oh, I can do this. Bam, you go for it. Unless you create something in your mind where you're like, oh, I can't have that job. I'll give you one example before we leave off here. Okay, as a path of non-resistance. As an example of how people do this to themselves. If you were a person who wanted to, have a higher income, you wanted a better job, and you had to hand out resumes. Imagine you were a person handing out resumes, and you were used to handing out resumes as a cafeteria worker or a receptionist, customer service. And you said to yourself, you want to make $35 more an hour. And as you went through the list of resumes on the internet, you saw online on Indeed or whatever website you use, you saw a bunch of positions for a commercial driver. And you said to yourself, oh, I can't hand my resume into those places. I don't have my commercial license. So instead of going forward, you create a belief in your head about why you can't do that thing. Well, I want you to imagine that on the other side of the computer, there's a gentleman who's the boss of a commercial driver website or company. And that particular boss, he had 5 or 10 resumes on his table, a whole bunch of people sending in resumes to his company. And he looked through the list of all of those resumes and he noticed, oh shoot, not one person there has their commercial license. Guess what that boss has to do? That boss has to now pick out of a pile of 10 people who all don't have their commercial license, and he has to pay a company or pay a person to give them their commercial license. You see, all of a sudden you could be actually at the top of the list of people, but you will give yourself a reason why not to hand out a resume to a particular person because you think, if you were dealing with, I'm just using the example of resumes here. This happens way more than just resumes, but to help you understand it, you might think that you could never hand your resume into a particular thing. And meanwhile, you could actually have been at the top of the list, but you create a resistance in your mind. This is the same thing for relationships. If you wanted a certain love or a certain partnership, you're like, oh, I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. Meanwhile, you're just making it up in your head thinking that you know everything. And this stands for everybody. We all do this. There's plenty of times that I myself have created something where I couldn't go travel to some place or I couldn't do something, and I actually could have. I was just using my fear of failure to block my own capabilities, and I made the resistance. See what I'm saying, guys? We do this in a lot of ways. Where we buy our house, how we could live here, could we have a job, could we study a little harder, whatever the case is. Half of the problems we have to getting our goals actually exist inside of our mind. And the reason I'm saying this is because your cards are centering around fear of failure and the ability to be assertive, to go for it, not convincing yourself otherwise. So keep going for it, my dears. I will leave you off with that, and ciao for now.